done. And with that said, it's quite interesting because we're talking about registering companies, but the bigger question is, how is the economy doing? And right now, I'm joined by Nelly Chepkemoi, who is a policy and advocacy manager at We Care organization. Thank you very much, Nelly. Yeah, I was listening to the cabinet secretary a couple of days ago, and he was at Bunge la Wananchi, and he painted a particular picture of our economy, which was quite interesting. First of all, there is this sentiment that the current government inherited a very difficult situation, as he put it. There was a Eurobond pressure. So all that, actually what they're doing is trying to contain the impact of the previous regime. Listening to the CS, what were some of your takeaways, and do you think that it was justified to take that point of view?
Okay, so thank you for inviting me here first. I think the CS was wrong because we were presented with the budget policy statements, which are ideally their budgetary projections and, you know, what they are projecting to allocate in this financial year 2025-2026. And with that budget policy statement, we were able to see that they are budgeting for a national budget of 4.3 trillion to see. And then when you look further, you find out that they actually, out of this 4.3 trillion, 3.8 goes to recurrent expenditure. And I like that you've started the show, or rather the segment, with how to register a company. We are doing it online. The government in place came in with the idea of digitization, you know, the digital economy. And right now, they've been automating government services. I like that you really started with that topic, because then it shows government services are automated. They've gone online. Then when it comes to the budget, we are seeing a difference, or a different talk that the CS is saying. Yes, they found, dilapidated economy, so to speak. But then what are they doing to improve on that? What are they doing to cushion Kenyans? And why I'm saying that is because we are seeing a trend where government is trying to automate their services and make them online. But that is not reflective in the budget, because while we are talking of a 4.3 trillion budget, and you're saying out of that budget, almost 3/4 of it goes to recurrent expenditure, then what are we doing? Where are our priorities?
But in terms of that element of recurrent vis-a-vis development expenditure, when you look at absolute figures, year on year, you see that as the budget grows, there is also an increment in terms of how much we are spending. Though sometimes percentages may vary, but it's a norm. Is there a country, a jurisdiction where they spend more on development and less on recurrent? And what would it take for Kenya to achieve a well-balanced budget?
Okay. Well, I think for me, I begin with the question where you've just started about the recurrent expenditure and why we are having it rise every financial year. I think it's because of the size of government. While we are increasingly putting more advisors to government, the other time during the demonstrations, we were being told of the austerity measures. And one of the measures was to cut down on the advisors. This financial year, it's like we are seeing a different thing. More financial advisors are coming in. So for me, it brings the question of governance, the question of compliance, the rule of law, and the question of budgeting, because while we are talking of the expenditure going up, the recurrent expenditure is just basically going to cater for these many people that are coming in government, because they are government employees. That means they are going to be paid by our taxes, the public money. So if they keep increasing, that means the tax base is reducing as well, because we as a country, we are also in an economic crisis where the employment rate is high. So you're definitely going to have the tax base go low. And while that goes low, then you are increasing the expenditure, then the gap is being created there. And then we also have the aspect of debt in this country. You've asked me, what do we do? number one thing to do is right now, when you look at since this government came into place, less than 30 months, we are already talking of a debt of 2.4 trillion. So just before that, we were talking of a debt distress. So you see there's the issue of debt where we are borrowing too much, too fast, and the tax base is reducing because this regime is so hell-bent on increasing the tax measures or increasing the tax base. Another aspect which I'm seeing as a challenge that can be avoided by our government or Kenya at large is in the past 3 months, we took part in this exercise of the amending the tax laws. And when the president signed that into law, that was just 3 months ago. And we are looking at going into a budget, cycle or exercise by the government. Okay. So in the next 3 months or 4 months, again, we are going to have another round of tax changes, so to speak. So you see there's not enough space. And even when now, during the public participation of the tax amendments by the Treasury and the Parliament, one recommendation we gave to the government is to have, or rather give Kenyans a tax ledger window, whereby, and why I'm talking of a window is that migration movement of ledger balances. Because if we are talking of 3 months ago having tax changes, then in the next 4 months when finance bill comes due to this budget policy statement, we are going to have another round of changes. So at what point do we have a consistent tax regime? Okay. And that is one recommendation I would recommend.
Definitely. In less than 30 seconds as we close up, I've seen KNCCI Business Barometer report, not very optimistic. FKE, they spoke. They say things are not looking very good. So in terms of cushioning self, because the government, at the end of the day, it has to push for revenues collection.
Yes.
How do businesses survive this environment that might not seem as positive as it should be?
I think the direction that the CBK is taking is a good move at the moment, because as the regulator, then they have to implement and make sure that the banks that give, young business owners or entrepreneurs that loans, some of them have not been complying. Okay. And so this is why I'm appreciating the role of CBK coming in as a regulator to ensure that money is, or rather banks are lending to business owners money that is they are able to manage. That's number one. Number two, I think I'm coming back to the issue of compliance as a country. We've been taking too much debt. Okay. Some of the debt ends up not getting to the consolidated funds. Okay. So we have the question of why is the government through Treasury misappropriating the funds? The Parliament doesn't approve such funds, then you end up going to take a debt and does not get to the consolidated funds, so it just disappears. Okay. There's the question of accountability. That's how we can, if they are able to come openly, because if the money is meant for the people, then come out openly in what you're getting.
All right.
Yeah,
definitely. Transparency. Thank you very much, Nelly,
Asante.
For your time.
Thank you.
Nelly Chepkemoi is the Policy and Advocacy Manager at We Care organization. She's given us a glimpse of what to expect in the year 2025 in regards to budgeting and how you can make sure that we are walking into a 2025 that is better. And policy will determine. CBK, they're changing quite a few things, which is quite interesting. At this particular moment, we take a short break right here on Weekend Prime. When we come back, some business. Stay tuned.